It's the weekend, and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome to the program. It's the first show of March 2018. Delighted you could join us. And by the way, happy America Saves Week. It's just the end of this week. We're coming to the end of the America Saves Week. What do I need to tell you? I need to tell you a couple things about savings that freaked me out a tiny bit. Because last week, the government, we have various reports that come out all the time. So first, let me just say that the Conference Board, which measures consumer confidence, they said their consumer confidence index rose to the highest level in 17 years. That's pretty amazing considering we had wild stock market gyrations. It was actually the worst month for stocks in 2 years. And, in many ways, everyone felt like, got out of the month and we were only down by, 5% or something from the top. That's not bad considering we were in correction territory. But meanwhile, consumer confidence is up. Everything's rocking and rolling. Markets are crazy. And guess what? The savings rate here during America Saves Week, it's like the worst level since 2005. I mean, we're just not saving a lot. You know what the savings rate was in 2012? It was 11%. And now we're in the twos? Oh, my God. Hey, I found a new app that's totally cool. I have nothing to do with them. I just think that it's cool. It's called Capital, with a Q, Capital. Mark, let's see if we can get them on the air. Qapital, Capital. I was playing with it, and it's kind of neat because it allows you to set up the different conditions that trigger the app to transfer cash to your savings account. So, figure this. I got a side gig. I get paid. Every time I get paid, put a certain percentage of my money in this account. That's kind of amazing, especially if you have to pay your own taxes. Anyway, just do me a favor. Do something to take control of your financial life, will you? Please? Yeah, just something. One way you can take control of your financial life is to call us. 855-411-JILL. The other way you can take advantage of our little expertise at this program is to send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Oh, and by the way, don't forget, we got a brand new thing, the newsletter. Just go to the website, JillOnMoney.com. Mark's created this news. I have nothing to do with this. Mark just sort of says, here's my deal with Mark. I do a ton of stuff, and then Mark makes sure that you can see it, listen to it, and read it. And we're also going to send in this newsletter stuff you may have missed throughout the week. So what are we going to do it every week on Fridays or Saturdays? By the way, Mark and I totally work 7 days a week, but we don't suspect you do. So Fridays, he's going to send it out. All right. Sign up. It's very exciting. Already, we did like a soft launch of it. How many people signed up already? Already a couple hundred? This is what I want. By the end of 2018, how many people do you want for the newsletter? 1,000. I was going to say 5,000. I want 5,000 for the newsletter. Help me get there. Go to JillOnMoney.com. Mark, you've got very low sights. You're not getting a bonus unless we get 5,000. All right. Let's go take a call. Remember, if you would like to get on the air, just send an email, ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We've got Mark on the line from Buffalo. Hello, Mark. Welcome to Jill on Money. Tell me what I can do for you.
I'm seeking a little advice here. I am 58 years old. In 13 months, I will turn 60. Lots of long hours and work and personal situations have made me reconsider a 62, maybe down to 60 if I can do it, and I'm seeking some advice on that.
Okay. Tell me what's going on besides your age. Tell me, some specifics about your situation.
Okay. I lost my wife 6 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, yeah.
That stinks.
So I have worked with a planner, and she gave me a very positive view on being able to do this. Now, it's not that I'm going to stop completely working, but I want to go from long hours to shorter hours, part-time, have more flexibility and some more time for me, mainly because I do all the tasks now. What used to be split, now I do everything.
Yeah, I get that.
So right now, as I said, I'm a widower. I make $132,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of my personal situation, I will have no debt at retirement. I own my home presently. It's about a $300,000 value.
Okay.
I've done most of the remodeling around the house and preparation, things like bathrooms and kitchen. And my car will be 2 years old when I do retire, and I will have that loan paid off by 60.
Okay.
I have a $20,000 emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
My children are grown and college educations are paid for. In current retirement savings, I have a little over $900,000, of which about $476,000 is in an IRA, $140,000 is in a 401k that I'm contributing $12,000 to that.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a Roth 401k that I'm contributing $12K per year, and that's about $105,000. And then I have what I call my kind of guaranteed interest retirement savings, which is cash primarily in CDs, ladder CDs, of $182,000.
Great.
And I contribute like $10 to $15K a year on that. Now, at 60 years old, here's where it gets interesting. At 60 years old, I'm eligible to collect my wife's survivor benefit, which would be about $1,320 a month.
Okay.
And I do have a pension, and I have the ability to take a Social Security leveling option on that pension from 60 to 62, which would be equivalent to like almost $2,000 a month.
So between that $2,000 a month and $1,320 a month, right?
Yes.
That's what you would have. And could you live on that? Is that enough money? $3,300?
It's a little less than I really need. But again, I'm planning to do some part-time work. So what I think I need is about $4,200 a month to live on. And I have spreadsheets that I've been maintaining for a couple years now, tracking my expenses, and that does also include a medical, because I'll have to carry my own medical. Which being in New York, we have the ability to go to the exchange and actually determine what our payment would be for medical coverage. And then, as I said, so that's from 60 to 62. Now, so at 62 years old, then I could collect my pension, my Social Security, which would be about $2,030 at 62, or anywhere up through my full retirement age of 66, 10 months, which would be $2,926 per month. Now, I also have a New York Guaranteed Future Income Annuity account that at age 62 will pay me $1,760 a month. And then again, the remainder of my pension would be about $380 on top of that. So that would be getting pretty close to where I need to live on in terms of, income at 62. Again, I think I still would, do some part-time work.
All right, so hang on one second. We got to go quickly to a break. I want to come back. I want to find out about that part-time work. So hang on one sec. We'll get right back to you, Mark. You're listening to Jill on Money. Our email is askjill@jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
All right, you are back with Jill on Money. And before we went to the break, we were talking to Mark from Buffalo. And Mark, I have to say, you've got an amazingly complex but detailed situation. And but I guess what I want to say is, and the reason why I wanted to keep you here is that you've done a lot of the hard work already. I think that in most cases, the the problem that I have with people is they're unwilling to go through what you just recounted to me.
Okay.
So if everybody listening, the reason why I'm making you stick around here for an extra segment is simply to just give you a gold star or 5 gold stars. I don't know. And I think that the most important piece of this is that normally what I would say to people is, oh, my God, do not take the Social Security benefit early at 62.
Right.
But number one, it's just you.
Yes.
And so now I guess that we have this idea that, yes, you will have a permanently lower Social Security benefit, but you have all these other sources of income.
Yes.
And so I think that for others listening, in most cases, what I do is I say, don't do that, right? You'll hear me say that all the time. But in your case, it actually seems like it's a smart decision.
And also I know about, like, it used to be the old 4% rule, and just looking at if I want to enhance my lifestyle a little bit, even taking 1 or 1.5% out of my portfolio would give me an enhanced retirement benefit per se, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that first of all, obviously every year that you delay retirement is going to help your overall situation. But that said, you've gone through a lot. You know, you lived through the death of a spouse. You have been working your butt off. You're willing to work part-time. And even if you work part-time for, just a couple, like 2-3 years,
yes,
you're going to be fine. And if you had to pull some money out of the portfolio, as you said, a withdrawal rate of even just 2%, that's going to be fine. I didn't ask you, I'm sorry, do you have kids?
They're grown. The college educations are paid for, and the kids are adults.
Okay, great. And they're in good shape financially themselves?
Oh, yeah. My youngest is married to a doctor, so he's a financial manager for a large company, so they're fine. And my other son works for a restaurant. He's in a restaurant. He's doing very well.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, the thing is that you don't have to worry about the kids. You don't have to worry about a spouse right now. I think you're in, as you said, that, you want to have some different kind of time in the next group of years that, you can enjoy yourself. You might find, I will say this, you might find that you're a young guy and that you are actually liking the work part-time. Or maybe you're the kind of, I don't know what do you do for a living?
I'm an engineer.
I mean, you might find that you could be a consultant and have fun and take projects you like.
I've also, have looked into some teaching or, things of that nature. And so, as I said, what I want is I want the flexibility not to have to do the, 45, 50-hour weeks and those kind of things. I want to have some flexibility in my life. Because, as I said, it's been a while since I've had that ability to have flexibility.
Right.
And as I said, I do everything. So it would be just, as I said, I've talked this with my other financial advisor, and she, said we can make this work, and you'll be fine. And as you go on, and again, as I said, I've been tracking things, what I live on, and I throw in like worst case. I'm even tracking the newspaper and the haircuts and all that other stuff.
Dude, come on.
I'm sick.
Oh.
If you saw my spreadsheet, and then I have all these, assertions and things of that nature that I look at, different withdrawal rates off the portfolio, things of that nature. So.
I think you're in good shape.
I feel confident, but it's that last step where it's almost like you're stepping off the diving board there. It's so as I said, having your backup. As I said, the financial advisor I work for, she also has had very positive results on this. As I said, though, it's just it's a whole different step in my life.
Well, I think that you're being thoughtful about it, which is fantastic. And perhaps most importantly, that you are very much in a place where you can have some options. You don't have to get locked into any particular game plan at this point. So see how things go. And you might find just the knowledge that you could stop working may be plenty for you. And it may be that by the time you get to your 60th birthday, you say, I'm going to keep doing this. Or maybe you won't, but you've got choices. And you know why you have...
Real quick. What I've done is, over the last couple of years, we went from like a 70-30 portfolio allocation down to 60-40. Now we're at like 45% equity, 21% bond, and 33% short-term, and 1% of something other. So, in essence, do you think I'm in it's kind of like the right positioning I should be in right now?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
Okay, good.
there's no reason for someone in your situation to assume lots of risk,
Right.
right? I mean, I guess there are two ways to look at it. One is that, like, hey, I don't need so much money. I don't need to tap my assets anytime soon. So therefore, I'll take a ton of risk. I don't see it that way.
Okay.
I would always choose to take the least amount of risk necessary to get you where you want to go.
Awesome.
That's really, and I think you've done that. And by the way, for everyone listening, one of the reasons you work so damn hard throughout your career is that you have options. And I think what you have done and proven is that you can go through horrible situations in your life. You lose your wife. You've got different things that come up. And one of the best parts of being financially secure is that you have different choices to make. And to me, that is why you did this. That is why you work so hard.
Yeah.
So I applaud you. I wish you the very best of luck. And, of course, keep us up to date and let us know, how it goes.
All right. Appreciate it so
All right.
much. I love your show.
Good luck. Thank you so much for calling. Appreciate it.
All righty.
Oh, what a great call. What a great call. Mark, that's why we do it, man. That's good stuff. Of course, it always makes me laugh that, like, the engineers are so funny because you wouldn't believe the spreadsheets I have. Yeah, I would. Oh, yeah, I would believe that. Some of my I will also say this, that engineers or people who tend to have more concrete thinking about these issues. On one hand, it's great because they always come in with a very clear picture. The one part about engineers that's a little bit hard is sometimes they have a bit of analysis paralysis. They tend to just keep crunching the numbers and keep crunching the numbers. And even though there's proof to the fact that they've done what they need to do, they still, like, you see, his financial advisor said, yeah, it's no problem. But then he wants to call me also. My guess is that it's scary. These are big moments. The other thing to recognize is that, let's say you make a mistake. Let's say that, gee whiz, I miss working. Gee whiz, I want to work more or longer. I bet that this guy can keep working, or, maybe not get a full-time gig, but maybe if he just misses the companionship of work, that maybe he has an opportunity in many ways to just keep doing what he's doing, or on a consulting basis, do some part-time projects. All of that is a very easy way for me to say to you, you don't have choices unless you do the hard work while you are making the money. By the way, guy makes $130 grand a year. Look at how much money he's saved. I mean, come on. And someone sent an email in to us about how, it's impossible. You only have rich people on your show. 130 grand is not rich. 130 grand is like a solid amount of money, about, let's say, 2.5 times the median household income in the United States, 2 times. And he lives in New York. So, I mean, I know it's Buffalo. It's not the city. But the dude has almost $1 million saved. And he's not 60. So this is not rocket science. It is actually just doing it. My sister had a funny comment to me recently. We were talking about someone who lost 20 pounds. And she says to the woman, how'd you do it? She goes, I did hot yoga. And my sister said, baloney. What do you mean you did hot yoga? She goes, I stopped eating as much. I'm like, aha! I stopped eating as much. That's it. All right, you're listening to Jill on Money. When we return, more of your questions. If you'd like to get on the air with us, just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Don't forget to go to the website, jillonmoney.com, and you can subscribe to our new newsletter. We'll be right back.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, she's all over the place. Go to JillOnMoney.com to find it all. Now back to the show with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. Hey, have you checked out the website? It's looking fine. JillOnMoney.com. Read, listen, watch. Contact us. It's all right there. Links to everything. We still have a YouTube channel or not? Okay. It's huge. It's huge. It's like, I don't know, 1,000 people? Come on. It's a big part of what we do, YouTube, says Mark. He runs all of this stuff. Check out our podcast. It's called Better Off. You can get it on Apple, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcasts. And follow us on Twitter at Jill on Money, the cesspool known as Twitter. I know. Here's a note from Corey. The first half of my life, I raised my 2 children on $24,000 a year. How about that? The second half of my life, I married a person who is, ready for this, $3 million in debt. And Corey figured out how to get them out of their debt, but then her husband died. Sold their ranch for a bunch of money, carried the note, took a down payment, did a 1029 exchange, bought a farm. Anyway, she's got, I don't know. This is such a crazy note. Okay, so she gets interest-only payments for a mortgage that she's holding. And has Social Security. So with her interest-only payment and her Social Security, she makes about $118,000 a year. As of 2016, I opened a traditional IRA with $6,500 and another $6,500 in 2017. Can I open a Roth? How are you opening these? How are you making retirement plan contributions if you don't have earned income? That's what I don't understand. Corey, 63, $240,000 in savings account. The farm is worth $1.25 million, no debt. Took out a 30-year mortgage. Now the ranch owner has a buyer. It's going to pay me 2.1 on the note. What do I do to keep from quadrupling my tax bill? Blah, blah, blah. Should I buy an annuity? I don't know what that is. I have a whole life insurance policy. My 2 kids are grown. I don't have any health insurance. I was looking into a medical savings account, but I have to throw away $15,000 a year to buy a major medical insurance policy. Help. Corey, this is like way too much for an email. So let me be clear. Number one, I don't think you have actual earned income. So I'm not sure how you're making an IRA contribution. That's number one. Number two, you need a financial advisor. That's just crystal clear. You need both an accountant and a financial advisor. Go find yourself a fiduciary advisor. Get some help. This is way, way, way more complicated than I think is available here for an email on a radio show. So good luck. Mark, send Corey the 10 questions to ask. A link to the letsmakeaplan.org, and we'll be all set. Here is a note from Anna, who enjoys our podcast, and I presume the radio show. As a former finance industry employee, it's refreshing to hear a woman give investing advice. I wonder if you'd be interested in addressing the financial life of freelancers. Yeah, I would. I think that there is a lot to be said because, you know, we had on the show Chris Guillebeau, the author of Side Hustle. And I know a lot of you have side gigs, also known as part-time work in my era. Here are some questions that Anna has. Should I be an independent contractor or a sole proprietor or LLC? How should freelancers structure budgets? And kind of how should they invest? Well, first of all, LLC versus sole proprietorship or any other structure has a lot to do with kind of what you do. An LLC, and all of these are pass-through organizations. They will be treated the same way for tax purposes, which is really crazy, by the way, because certainly the pass-through dilemma now with the new tax code is going to drive you crazy. Some of it has to do with whether you actually have liability and want to create a separate structure, a business entity to protect you against some liability. In terms of how you structure your budget, it's really not that different than anyone else. But the main delineation between, say, a freelancer and a W-2 employee is that you may have inconsistent income. So you probably should keep more cash on hand. You know how we always say 6 to 12 months of living expenses? With freelancers, I think always 12 months. Absolutely. because you don't know how long you're going to have in between projects. I think that people who are self-employed should be thinking about what's the best kind of retirement plan for you. Of course, there's a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. You can put $5,500 in, $6,500 if you are over the age of 50. But, you also may want to think of something more generous, a SEP IRA. SEP IRA, you can put in for this year, a maximum of $55,000. It's the SEP limit for 2018, 25% of up to $275,000 of compensation. So $55,000 is a lot better than $5,500. You with me? You may even want to put in a 401k plan for yourself. You may even want to put in something called a defined benefit plan for yourself. The long story short on this, Anna, is that I think maybe we should do a whole separate episode. I think we should. But what would we do? We'd need a CPA and a CFP, maybe, a small business expert. Who should we have on that, Mark? Yeah, for the freelancer's financial life. I think we should do an episode. I think she's right. I think we need a podcast episode on that. And we'll rebroadcast some of it on the radio show. We'll have to think about that. But it's a great question, and I think it's awesome. So thank you so much, Anna. We love getting those kinds of notes. I do think a CPA would be good. I have a guy who does these small business plans, but he's kind of a snore. I'll have to find someone more exciting than that. We need good talkers. 855-411-JILL is our phone number. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. We will be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. Give us a holler. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. This is a long question, so bear with me. This is from, let's see, what the heck is his name? I can't say that name because that's like such a recognizable name. This is from a listener in Seattle, listens to us on Cairo Radio, 93.7 Cairo FM. Here is, let's call him Anonymous. He said, history. My family's very poor. I've never been able to keep up with continuing education. I've been working, supporting myself since the summer I graduated high school in 2010. In 2012, I went to massage school at night. I graduated with $15,000 in debt. I paid off the student loan with the highest interest first, then consolidated through my bank. And consolidated the two other federal student loans with debt I acquired from moving. So now it's a private loan, guys. Once you do that debt consolidation thing, I paid off the student loan with the highest interest rate first, then consolidated through my bank, Wells Fargo. The two other federal student loans with debt I acquired from moving. The total was up to $15,000. It's 2018. I have $8,300 left, and I make $241 a month payments. Okay, the interest rate is 9.25%. I mean, that's a big number. But once you consolidate those federal student loans with other private debt, don't forget, what do? You lose your opportunity to participate in any of the federal student loan debt options, which may be going away under Betsy DeVos, but for this minute, they're available. Okay, so Anonymous is more complicated. He's now once again a full-time student at a small college. He's going to graduate with in March. When I began, I paid the full tuition each quarter to avoid taking out more student loans. Now he can only work a day a week, and he's planning to transfer to a 4-year college to finish his bachelor's degree. I want to know how you navigate this scenario. I need to pay down $8,300 left in debt, right? Because remember, that's like 9.5%. Anonymous won't be able to work well during the summers. I see how you know that she's a she, because I will give birth and care for an infant. All right. How do I pay off the $8,300? Should I just work my butt off this summer, extend the payment plan, or is there another option? Yeah, I'd work your butt off. That's the option. For future student loans, should I take the loans out with the federal government, my bank, or a different bank? I do the federal government. Okay? And what I would try to do is whatever you're doing, like can you go to a cheaper place? You got to get money. I would only go to school if you can get money. You should be able to get some financial aid, and I would not borrow a lot more money, okay? What would be the benefit of a 5-year or 10-year versus a longer repayment plan? $85,000. Saving for kids, forget about that. Don't worry about that. Also, the boyfriend has $100,000 in student loans. Thanks, Mark. This is a great question. Okay, here's what I think you need to know. I mean, it's a very long email, so I'm not reading the whole thing on the air. The long story short is that here is a situation where you really need to be careful about accumulating new debt. Because in this situation, I think that you could probably chip away, pay off this, 9.25% loan and be fine. I'm not sure why you have to take on all this other debt. Can you not find a place where you can get a degree and get it paid for? Is there no option to go to an in-state school? I don't know. This is one of those cases where I don't know if I would even do this. I mean, I know it's important to get a degree, but do you have to go into Hawk for $85,000 to get that degree? It seems a little bit nutty. The best way would be to go through a federal program. Only borrow as much as the feds will give you. And they want to have kids, but I mean, it's fine to have kids. I don't want to say, as someone who doesn't have children, good luck with that. But no, they're not cheap. And the boyfriend has $100,000 of loans of his own. So I'm not sure I'd have kids till I kind of get a little bit more on my feet. This is a bad question. You've totally put me in a bad mood, Mark. If you're listening, I want you to know that you've got a complicated situation. Your job is to figure out a way to pay for this education. That's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be worrying about what's the best loan to take? It's like, where are the grants? Where is a place I can go to school and get a degree and get a credential or get someone to pay for it so it doesn't end up costing me so much money? You're going to be behind the 8 ball forever. And, financial aid is made for people who don't have money. You will qualify. You may not qualify to the exact thing you want, but tough luck. FAFSA form. Go call Kelly Peeler right now. Go to Next Gen Vest. You'll get assigned a money mentor. Make the process of applying for aid much easier. Text 646-798-1745 and just write, I want help paying for school. You're going to get connected with a human being. Let them help you out. I just think this could be a really devastatingly bad decision. So please be careful. You're listening to Jill on Money, 855-411-JILL. Send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com. Hey, follow us on Twitter. We're almost at 15,000, Mark. I know, it's been a long slog. When did you take over trying to get me some followers? He says I was at about 10, so he's gone from 10 to 15. Sounds like a good move, man. You're well worth it. Okay, Peter writes that he's 68 years old. He's retired. At age 70, his pension and Social Security benefits will cover his living expenses. This is a great problem to have. $1.4 million in his thrift savings plan, and that will require a minimum required distribution. He says, I don't need the money. Is there a way to defer so I won't have to pay income taxes? Thank you. The only thing that you may be able to do is you could certainly take up to $100,000 and do what is called a qualified charitable distribution. This has to go, I think it has to go from an IRA. I don't think you can do it straight from a thrift savings plan. So you may need to roll over some of that money or all of that money to an IRA rollover account. And then you send money directly from the retirement account to the charity. So look this up, qualified charitable distribution, QCD. And then your money goes, your minimum required distribution, whatever you take from this account, up to $100,000. It goes directly to the charity, so you don't get taxed on it. Now, you don't get the charitable deduction, but you don't get taxed on it. So how great is that? So if you want to kind of say, I don't want to give the money to Uncle Sam, I'd rather give it to a cause I really believe in, that's one way to do it. Why are you shaking your head, Mark? Well, I don't know. He doesn't want to pay taxes. He doesn't have to. Now you can give that money to, whatever cause is close to you, near and dear. But check that out, a qualified charitable distribution. And I think I think it's so cool. Anyway, and I'm pretty sure you're going to have to take your thrift savings plan and roll it into an IRA account to do this. But that's the way I know. I think it's a fabulous thing to do because it's like doing good and then you avoid your taxes. That's what I got for you. All right. Okay, that's it. That's the end of the first hour of the program. If you've got a financial question, head over to JillOnMoney.com. You can click Contact Us, or if you're just listening to us and roaming around, shoot us an email, askjill@JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome to the show. It's very exciting. Did you listen to the first hour? If you didn't, I got a great idea for you. Just go onto our website, JillOnMoney.com. You can listen to all our past shows. And if you missed the first hour, you can find it there. Mark will put it up there at some point. If you are continuing your time with us, we are delighted to have you back. This is the hour where we are introducing a guest, and this is a fascinating one. We get pitches for books all the time. And I'm writing a book myself, and I'm very happy to be writing a book, and it's all well and good, but there's a lot of rotten books out there. But when we got this book, we were sort of intrigued. It's called The CEO Next Door, and it's co-authored by Elena Botelho and Kim Powell. And I thought this was cool, not because you all want to become CEOs, but because these two women took the information that they had as consultants and broke it down to find out what are some of the traits that successful CEOs share. What are the behaviors? And I just think that that's kind of a neat way to do it because we think we know in our heads on what is a CEO. And, a lot of the most successful CEOs are not exactly what you would imagine in terms of sharing certain traits. You might say, oh, they're really smart, or they all go to Ivy League schools, or they're all very well trained in statistics or economics. No. Mm-mm. And so I think that having data and a big fat data set on which you can actually draw conclusions is what was really interesting to me. So I will say that one weird thing about this book, CEOs are destined for greatness from an early age. Okay, so right now, here is our interview with Elena Botelho, co-author of The CEO Next Door. Elena, you're here because you have co-written a book called The CEO Next Door and the 4 behaviors that transform ordinary people into world-class leaders. Now, why did you write this book?
You know, I come from a place where, and from a family where we like to look at data. My family is all kind of math geeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of my time with CEOs, and I spent a lot of my time in the boardrooms, and I was shocked to realize that what the rest of us think a good CEO looks like, and even more scary, frankly, what the boards think a good CEO looks like, up close and personal looks completely different. The people that I saw every day in my work with them and what made them great just instinctively didn't make sense vis-a-vis all the stereotypes we have. And so as a good Russian, I went off to get some data. And we're fortunate as a firm. We have the world's largest and deepest database of leaders. And so we dug into it to really understand what makes those leaders great.
Okay, let's go back a second here. So you grew up where?
I was born in Moscow and grew up between Moscow and Baku.
When did you come here to the United States of America?
Well, I can tell you either the year or how old I was, but you don't get both.
I understand. Just do whatever you feel comfortable doing.
Yes, I came at 19.
Mark said that I should have started this interview with a bottle of vodka on the countertop here. Would that have made you like me a little bit more, or do you think that would have been like stereotyping?
What I already like you very much because I think, Jill, we're on the same mission in life, actually, which is give good kind of evidence-based advice to everyone to help them be more successful. So vodka doesn't hurt, but maybe not at 10 a.m.
Yeah, definitely not. Okay, so you come here at 19. What'd you do?
After I was done, babysitting and learning English, I went on to get my accounting degree. Because, I came here, I actually, at that point, I'd studied to become a Russian language and literature teacher at the university in Russia. But when I came to this country, I thought, well, I could do that, or I could do something really American. Plus, I need to send money back home. And so the American thing to me, coming from then, the Soviet Union, was, well, one thing you guys had that we didn't was money. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll study economics. Then I pretty quickly realized that state school for economics is not a great way to send money back home. And so then I became an accountant overnight. So I started out as an accountant, believe it or not.
Wow.
And wow is what all my friends say now when they realize that I was ever an accountant.
Why? Because you're not really good with money?
They wouldn't really trust me to balance their checkbook. Not that anyone does that anymore.
Okay. So you are an accountant. And then tell me what happened. How did you kind of go into the consulting field?
Our family chronically gets graduate degrees. And so that was kind of assumed. So I came to this country, I worked as an accountant, paid my way, and looked around and I realized, what's this MBA thing that, smart kids seem to be getting? And so then, I went to Wharton School of Business because it was known for their strong finance education. And I thought, gotta make sure no matter what happens, we got, something solid to look back at, a good kind of immigrant logic. So I went to Wharton. And then I also looked around at Wharton and realized that kids who weren't really sure what they wanted to do, but wanted to do something great, went into consulting. So then I went to McKinsey. So that was my next step was McKinsey.
How long did you spend at McKinsey?
I was at McKinsey for 5 years, which is, I think, at least twice the average lifespan at McKinsey.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We interviewed a guy who wrote a book about sort of he smashed down Harvard Business School, but his first book was smashing down McKinsey. His name is Duff McDonald. And he thinks that it's like all this stuff is like circular, that like people from Wharton go to consulting firms and then they go and become CEOs and they hired people from McKinsey, and that it's all circular and that there is actually not a lot of innovation in these places. Did you find that?
That it's the inside club?
Yeah.
Well, I think... So first of all, I have to say that I think the fact that so many people try to knock whether it's McKinsey or I think it's a rite of passage in life, right? You've made it. It's a little bit like being a New Yorker, right? Like people love to knock New Yorkers. That's, because it's a really special place.
Yeah.
Look, I think companies hire McKinsey and other folks for different reasons. I actually don't think that companies outsource innovation to McKinsey. So I don't think the purpose of McKinsey typically in kind of a business ecosystem is to be innovative. But what I'm curious about and what you said, too, is Michael kind of views this as an inside club, which is, by the way, how most people view the CEO-ship as well. And one of the things that we were really excited and frankly surprised to find out in our research when we dug into the data is that actually the CEO-ship beyond, especially beyond Fortune 500, is not quite as much of an insider club and not as impenetrable to kind of normal people, if you will, as you might think outside in.
I love that you called this your data collection Moneyball for Leadership. I'm going to tell the Moneyball author
Michael Lewis.
himself,
You'll tell Michael Lewis.
He's been on the show
I'm sure
twice.
He'll be flattered.
He's been on the show twice. So I want to understand, what is it in this analysis that you were trying to determine? You were trying to figure out what was it about CEOs that made them successful, or what did they share? What was the analysis that you broke down?
Look, kind of the holy grail we were after is really cracking the code on what makes a successful CEO. Is there something that they share in common that looks to be statistically significant for their success? Now, because we're also very thorough and can't help ourselves, we also looked at how does that compare to what actually gets them hired? And we were pretty shocked by the answer.
We'll get back to our interview with Elena Botelho. And I just almost sneezed. That's why I took a second. We'll get back to our interview with Elena Botelho in just a minute. You're listening to Jill on Money. Send us an email. AskJill@JillOnMoney.com. AskJill@JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Have a finance question? There are many ways to reach the show. You can call anytime at 855-411-JILL, send an email to askjill@jillonmoney.com, or tweet a question on Twitter using the handle @JillOnMoney. Just use the hashtag AskJill.
You're back with Jill on Money. You want to rise to the top of the career ladder, right? I know it. And by the way, it's not for everybody. You don't have to be a CEO, but it's interesting to understand what are the qualities that make a good CEO. What do some of the more successful ones share? And that's why we have a great guest this hour, Elena Botelho. Her book is called The CEO Next Door. And the book is based on a study of over 2,600 leaders. And this is crazy because Elena and her co-author, Kim Powell, are consultants, and they have a database of 17,000 CEOs and C-suite executives, 13,000 hours of interviews, 2 decades of experience. And so this research, it was actually the featured cover story about a year ago in the May-June 2017 issue of Harvard Business Review. I know you didn't get your copy. Anyway, what's cool about this research is that it actually reveals so much of what we hear about who gets to the top and how it is totally wrong. And I find that part, I always like sort of contra-indicators, right? You always think of what does a CEO look like? Only 7% of the most successful CEOs graduate from Ivy League colleges. 8% of CEOs in their sample, in this research, they didn't even complete college. 45% of CEO candidates had at least one major career blow up. I would say you need a flawless resume and no typos, but that's for you, Dougie. You're going to have a career blow up, and that's going to be normal. What are the 4 key behaviors that lead to CEO-dom? Let's find out. More of our interview with Elena Botelho. All right, so let's talk about the 4 behaviors that are statistically associated with success. Decisiveness, engaging for impact, relentless reliability, and adapting boldly. Of those 4, is there one that dominates the others, or are they all in conjunction?
Oh, gosh. Well, I love the question. Which is most important depends on 2 things. On the situation you're in, on the company you run, or if you're early in your career, kind of what are the priorities in your job? And second, where are you weakest? So if I didn't know anything, if I was just kind of an average listener out there, if you asked me, so which one should I focus on if I'm not sure, right? The reliability is a really interesting one. Reliability, if you look at all these 4 behaviors, they sound like a bit of a mouthful, but they're quite simple, but they're not easy. And reliability in particular, when we looked at the data and it popped out that reliability was the only one of the patterns that overlap between success in the CEO role and getting picked for the CEO role.
That's interesting.
We ran numbers upside down and sideways, and the only factor that overlapped was the reliability.
But how do you measure this? Like, I mean, I'm a little bit of a math head, not as much as you are, but I guess that how do you measure decisiveness or reliability?
Yeah, so we looked at two things. Well, first, we wanted to define what does it mean to be a successful CEO, right? So that was our why variable for the math geeks out there. And for that, we reached out to board members. We looked at the facts about the company being sold. So we looked at, as much as possible, objective outside metrics of success for a CEO, which we defined as delivering results, right? Because short of that, who knows what a successful CEO looks like? So we defined success as measuring results. And then for measuring behaviors, we looked at our data that we gathered over 22 years of supporting CEOs and assessing CEOs. So that's the same data. The data we used in this analysis is exactly the same data that our clients hire us to use to support them in deciding which CEO gets picked. So it's really kind of in-depth review of CEOs' behaviors, CEOs' histories, and things that we learned behind the scenes in order to support the decision of who should get the job. And so we measure it basically by looking at how do they behave? What are the patterns of their behavior over time?
And what's interesting is you note that they're not inborn traits, that these are behaviors and habits shaped by practice and experience, and they can be developed at any time in your career. I would also imagine that if you don't want to be a CEO, like I don't want to be a CEO, but those are 4 behaviors that would be associated with success kind of in any job, no?
Exactly.
That's amazing. So I dog-eared this book, which I'm known to do. So you see that I've read it.
That's the most flattering thing you can do for an author. It's better than a bottle of vodka, even.
Oh,
Imagine
my God.
that.
Well, you know what? I know this is early in the press tour for you, but you may not get as many dog-eared copies in front of you. But I dog-eared this one part of this book that really jumped out at me, which is that, obviously a CEO is going to stumble. Or re-stumble at work.
Exactly.
Can you talk about the art of apology? Because I found this so interesting because I think that so often in society we're gunning for perfection. And now we know that that's silly, right? So talk about the art of apology and what that means and why that's important for not just a CEO, for any of us in our careers.
Absolutely. Well, so first of all, the art of apology is critical because what we've learned is mistakes are actually critical to learning all these 4 behaviors. So you can't really get very far in life without mistakes. We also learned, we talked about reliability just a second ago and how important it is. We actually found that leaders that build highly reliable organizations in kind of life or death situations like hospitals, like submarine officers, the very first thing they do is they actually learn how to deal with mistakes and they make it okay to make mistakes. Probably one of the biggest underused resources in business is mining your mistakes for learning. Well, with mistakes comes the need to apologize. I remember back in my McKinsey days, after a particularly difficult client meeting, a partner looked at me and said, guess what? As a leader, most things that are going to go wrong are not your fault, and they're all your responsibility. So better learn how to apologize. Painful. That was a painful lesson. So it is important to learn the art of apology. And, you can read in the papers, right, every day, CEOs and politicians demonstrate good ways and bad ways of doing it. I think own it is probably, if I have to give you one advice or the audience one advice, is owning it is the first step.
How do you own it without not letting it blow up your career?
First thing I will tell you is that whenever you find yourself in the midst of a most gut-wrenching, embarrassing, scary mistake, just take it from us who've analyzed over 2,000 CEOs. There is a quote-unquote successful CEO out there who may have peddled through mess that's way worse, way more embarrassing, and potentially likely more costly to the business. So the fascinating thing we learned in our analysis is that actually it's not about the mistake. What determines whether mistake becomes a learning stepping stone we can all share with our friends and colleagues, or will blow up to your career is actually not about the mistake itself. It's all about how you deal with it, which is apology plus learning is the secret.
The other part that jumped out at me was you have something called the niceness bell curve, which I love. It's a beautiful representation. Ladies and gentlemen, embrace the bell curve. It's just one of our favorite things. So you have two tails, right? And you have the not nice enough tail and the too nice tail. But what you're saying is there has to be some balance, right? And that there is a Goldilocks zone of just right. So Talk about how being too nice can be a problem for a leader.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, the interesting thing about being nice is that it does help you get hired, by the way. So no matter what position you're getting hired for, and you probably know this colloquially, we saw this in the data when we worked with the University of Chicago, likable people do have a higher probability of getting hired. However, if you're too nice, you're also likely to get fired from a leadership role.
Wait a minute. So nice gets you hired, but too nice gets you fired. Why do you think that is?
Because as a leader, you're expected to do tough things, right? And what we learned is that the leaders, we have this term we came up with, which sounds very consulting-y, which is lead for impact, right? Or engage for impact. And so that's how we named that sweet spot on the curve, on the niceness curve that you described. Leaders who operate in that zone, which is basically saying, my number one priority is moving the business forward, doing the right thing in my job, first and foremost, as opposed to being liked, those leaders were twice as successful.
We'll get back to our interview with Elena Botelho in just a minute. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Don't forget, go to the website, JillOnMoney.com, and you can sign up for our brand new shiny newsletter. It's Mark's most recent addition to the site. JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
If you've missed any part of the show or want to check out a past show, go to JillOnMoney.com for more great personal finance content.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com is our email address. Mark and I are going to do something crazy next week. We are going to take an additional few hours of our lives and just start banging out emails because Mark says we are backed up. Not that we don't read them. It's just that we can't read each one of them on the air. Mark now wants me to work even harder because he wants to do a show every day. Wrong. I'm not doing a show every day. Ridiculous. He thinks he would make money doing that. I don't know. I doubt it. I like our once a week. It's like this special thing. If it were every day, it wouldn't be as much fun. You know that? It's true. You work in an organization. You're a manager, you're an owner, you're a director, whatever. And you are constantly confronted with juggling your personnel. How do you know when to let someone go? How do you know when to move them to a different place? What if someone doesn't quite fit? Our guest today, Elena Botelho, who wrote The CEO Next Door, has some really good tips about that. More of our interview right now. You know, there has been some conversation when we even talk about, finding good performers in an organization. There are some folks out there who think that if you've got someone who's really great, you just figure out a way to get that person in the right role. I have found, at least when I was running a company, that often was sort of like almost venturing into too nice. Like, he's such a good guy. We've got to find a place for him when the business didn't need that person. So how do you balance I like this person. I would like this person to be on my team, but there's no place for him. What do you think about that?
It can become an excuse, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's a good, too nice cover-up, right? There are lots of cover-ups we use when we're being too nice.
Is it that you just always put the organization first? Or do you get people together and say, hey, let's think about ways that this person could be used? What's the better approach?
Look, it's always a balance. The interesting thing is when we've done the analysis, 75% of mistakes are all around people.
That's
right?
amazing.
And so what you're describing, struggling with, is actually really, really common. Whether you're running your own business like you did, or in a big job, or if you're just coming out of college, right? People mistakes are very, very common. And the one hack, if you will, that I would offer is think about why you're in the job, right? You're in the job ultimately to move the business forward in some way, and ask yourself, what does the business need for the future, right? So I think a lot of times we get stuck valuing somebody's contribution based on what they've done historically, but unfortunately life doesn't work that way. And so we talk about, it sounds really brutal, but we talk about zero-basing your team, right? Just like
what does that mean?
Well, it's basically saying, assume you had to rehire the whole team from scratch, and assume the only thing that mattered was what you're going to be asked to do in the future.
Wait a minute. I love that. I love that idea.
Don't do that with your spouse, though.
No.
This one doesn't travel outside of professional
But what's
domain.
interesting about that is, for me, I think that I've often, sometimes people will call up and they'll ask about their portfolio. I have this, and this, and I really want to hold on to this stock. Why do you want to hold on to this stock? Because Nana left it to me and she said, but would you buy that stock today if you were starting over?
Exactly.
No, I wouldn't. So it's almost like doing that with your own, with your work life. Like,
bingo.
if I were finding a producer today from scratch, would I hire this knucklehead sitting across the glass?
Clearly.
And I would. And so would I hire this person?
And I love your portfolio approach is actually spot on.
But what do you do about loyalty? So do I hold on to that person because of loyalty or never? You're so brutal. Here comes the brutal Russian right now.
You know, here's the crazy thing,
Yeah.
actually, because this is exactly why people get stuck with the teams that aren't the right teams.
Yeah.
I think the assumption you're making is that you're being humane, that the humane thing is to keep a person in the job where they're not going to be successful. Would you want to be in the job that you're not going to be successful?
No, it's like being in a relationship when someone's not in love with you. No, thank you.
And you know what's crazy is that oftentimes when people are finally released out of their misery, they actually feel relieved because they can go on and do something that they can be excellent at.
That's interesting.
And so I think that's the big shift.
I want to talk about reliability because these are such easy things. The successful CEOs we meet who understand the critical importance of reliability know that the little stuff matters. Okay, I'm a total stickler for this. They are on time for meetings, for planes, and for phone calls. So essentially, if you've got a chronically late CEO, what am I supposed to do with that? In other words, if I'm a board member, and not that the board member is going to necessarily see this day to day, but even if I'm a worker and I see that kind of behavior, is that a trigger for me to be like, uh-oh, that's not the only thing, but that's something to keep an eye on?
Well, here's the crazy thing. I love that you jumped right on the lateness, although it makes me ashamed because I think I was about 5 minutes late here,
right,
but
worry.
Here we are. Lateness is one of those things that speaks louder than words. Like if you want to broadcast lack of reliability, be late. And the crazy thing is, because we've coached CEOs and we've coached leaders who just don't get it because they're like, well, I know, but I'm doing the right thing. I'm just too busy, right? Because there are always good reasons. And the simple question is, well, so when was the last time you missed your flight? And normally never, right? And so then the message you're broadcasting, lateness, you picked up on the right thing because it's so simple to do in theory, but it has a huge cost to your reliability, perception of reliability you're creating. Because you know what people think, right, is they're not important.
By the way, the highly reliable people make lists.
That is true. Are you a big list maker?
Huge.
And do you put things on the list just to check them off?
Oh,
that's
definitely.
the litmus test.
Absolutely.
It makes you feel good and accomplished.
Absolutely. And I have lists and lists and lists, and they're written. And it does not work to have notes on your phone. Doesn't work
Not
for
the
me.
same.
Okay.
Not the same.
They are aware of their moods, words, and actions in their interactions with their teams. Are their actions and words having the desired effect?
Here's the story. I was talking to Steve Kaufman, who was CEO of Arrow Electronics, was very, very successful. And he said, you know, one of the most useful pieces of advice someone gave me is to smile more. Because what happens is you come out of a meeting and, you know, maybe you have a bad back and you walk down the hall and everyone looking at you is queuing off your energy. And you may have just, you know, slept badly, but they're going to think you're going to sell the company, that the quarterly earnings are going to suck. And so what happens is it's a little bit like with your parents at home, right? The CEO is always on stage, and you don't have to be CEO. If you're a parent at home, you're always on stage. If you're a leader of any kind in your organization. And so the mood you set really affects people around you.
We'll get back to our interview with Elena Botelho in just a minute. If you have a financial question, we want to hear from you. Go to JillOnMoney.com or send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. And we've got lots of fun stuff on the website, so check it out. We'll be right back.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, she's all over the place. Go to JillOnMoney.com to find it all. Now back to the show with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Follow us on Twitter at JillOnMoney. Don't be nasty. Be nice. Even if you're going to be critical, you can still do it in a respectful way. A friend of mine just said to me recently that Twitter is basically the sewer. It is like the worst possible elements of social discourse. But there is some cool stuff there, too. And Mark is tweeting out some great stuff that we find all over the place. So thank goodness for Mark, is what I say of all the time. Hey, Mark, by the way, what happened to your New Year's resolution to come on to the show and have your hot mic available for the listenership here? I know it's a valid question. Because you're the one who said to me, I sound idiotic talking to nothing. But I am talking to you, and I'm just relaying it. You remember that? Wasn't there a funny sitcom like with Tim Allen where he talked to the neighbor across the fence and you never saw the neighbor's face? I can't remember what that's called. I don't know. But anyway, there was that. I'll find out. Someone will figure it out. All right. Let's get back to our interview with Elena Botelho, who wrote The CEO Next Door. I would like to tell you that one of my pet peeves, and one of Mark's pet peeves as well, is that people are basically not able to follow through. They're late, or they make a commitment and they blow us off, or, you know, they don't do what they say. Oh, sure, yeah, I'll post the show. Yeah, I'll retweet it when I come on as a guest, and then they just fall short. We're going to find out from Elena Botelho why follow-through is so important. Here's more of our interview. One other thing here that is interesting is that you make a commitment and you follow up on whatever that next action is. Why is that so important?
So we talk in the book, one of the 100 CEOs we profiled in the book is Bill Amelio. And Bill is known, if you ask anyone in his life, so Bill, what do you think of Bill? The two words will come through: diabolical follow-through.
I love that.
Literally.
I love that.
And so what that does on the face of it is the diabolical follow-through is important because it gets things done, right? You're reliable because it gets things done. Even more importantly, as a leader, it trains everyone around you that if they make commitments, they're actually going to have to follow through.
Talk a little bit about adaptability, because I do feel like I come from financial services, right? And I think that is a business that prides itself on we're always, making new things. We're technology enhances this. We've got new products in it. But I actually find it is a very slow adapting business in general to almost like the zeitgeist of what's going on. How important is adaptability individually, but also as an organization?
When we're in the boardroom, the one behavior that gets talked about most often these days is adaptability. Here's a surprise that we found. So highly adaptable leaders are 7 times more successful.
15 more times if you're reliable, 7 more
times
if you're adaptable.
If you're adaptable.
Okay.
The surprising thing is when you think of an adaptable leader, you think of somebody who's just great at predicting the future, right? We always have these visions of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos who just, were there before others and were able to trailblaze. Well, when we look at real behavior of real leaders who score high on adaptability, you know what the number one thing they're really good at?
What?
They're really good at letting go of habits that worked for them in the past and no longer work in the future. So it's actually letting go of the old crap that makes you adaptable and really makes the difference between someone who can adapt and who can't. So I would argue that one of the reasons that financial services maybe hasn't been adapting as much as you'd like to believe is because you make a lot of money in the old business models. The toughest thing is actually to Amazon yourself, right? It used to be the saying in the 90s or in early 2000. It's how do you change when all of your P&L or all of your comfort is coming from the old behaviors?
So one thing that we talk about on the show, and I'll talk a little bit about financial services, is this idea that in the financial services industry, there's just a sliver of folks who want to really live and die by the fiduciary standard, which is putting your customers' best interests first. And all these big old legacy firms are against it. There's like 8 different firms, and they signed they're really mad about it. And I cannot for the life of me figure out why not putting your clients first is a good business, even though they're making a lot of money doing it the other way. And I had someone explain this to me. Oh, you don't understand the costs of doing this or to comply with this. But why do you want someone who's not putting your clients first? I don't get it.
Pretty basic in any business,
right?
Yeah.
And they push back and they continue to push back against us. So shame on all of you who are pushing back on it. I do believe that it is this legacy. It's not surprising to me as you start to describe it why the fintech guys, the young firms that have started, are very willing to embrace it because there's nothing to lose.
There's nothing to lose. There's not. Well, so to that point, did you see the Olympics? I thought one of the cool articles on the Olympics was about the U.S. ski jumping team.
Yes.
Olympic competition, like the peak of athletic performance, they deliberately showed up jet lag.
Oh, yeah, because there's something that happens with jet lag.
Well, because basically, apparently, ski jumping is so scary, even for ski jumpers, that they thought, well, if my brain is a little loopy, it's probably actually a good thing because I won't be inhibited. But the best part about that article was a comment that, well, look, the U.S. team is not expected to win any medals anyway, so they've got nothing to lose, so they're willing to experiment. And I think it's back to exactly what you said, which is when we make too much money or we're too successful doing the old thing, that's how we get killed.
And by the way, I think that's a good thing to think about with just if you're a worker bee, not the CEO. Like if you're clinging to the past, you better let that go because that's gonna eat you up alive.
Maybe in how you look at your portfolio, right? In any aspect of your life. Absolutely.
Okay, so be on time for meetings, honor your commitments, and follow up on agreed upon actions religiously. Those are just some of the key takeaways from our interview with Elena Botelho. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've got a financial question, ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back. Okay, you are back with Jill on Money. How you doing? Getting ready with your taxes? Got a question about your taxes? Give us a holler. Our email address is askjill at jillonmoney.com. Askjill at jillonmoney.com. Glenn asked us about the new standard deduction, which is nearly doubling to $24,000 for those who are married filing jointly. Is the increase for this filing season or next year? It is next. Well, I mean, let me just say this. The increase takes effect in January of 2018. However, if you're looking at last year's tax returns and that kind of planning, that is that's the old rates. So that's good news. The standard deduction, okay, for 2018, $24,000 marrying, filing jointly. Single, $12,000. A couple of things also that you need to know about this year. Medical expenses for last year, 2017 calendar year, and this year. Those medical expenses are deductible in excess of 7.5% of your adjusted gross income. That is a lower amount. It was 10% previously if you were under the age of 65. So if you had big medical expenses last year, you may be pleasantly surprised to find that. A couple of other things in terms of your planning ahead. You may like to know that the withholding amounts and the withholding tables, that's all been updated. But the big problem is that for some folks who are in high tax states, the withholding amount may not be enough to cover you. So you just have to be careful on that. A lot of folks are doing some math on those paychecks. So the people who need to really think about this are those who believe that whatever is withheld from their paychecks may not be enough to cover their federal income tax. So just want to make sure that everyone gets that. We'll see if you need to adjust your withholding. Okay, that's it. That's the show. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, just give us a holler. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com or head over to the website, jillonmoney.com, and you can click on the Contact Us button. We will see you next week, and thank you for listening.